There, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Tim Fletcher. I'm a Senior Director of Solutions Marketing at Snowflake. And today we're going to talk about how Snowflake powers marketing analytics. So today we're going to talk about three things. The first is, why does data matter to a marketing organization? So why is this important? What's the urgency around this? And why should your C-suite and senior people at your company care about marketing and empower marketing with data? Second, what's a good data strategy for marketing? So if this is important, what do we need to go and do? And how should we think about laying out the steps from our current state to the ideal future state? And then third is that foundation. How do we build a great customer 360? And what's the role that Snowflake and other partners might play in that stack? So the first question, so why does data matter to marketing? Why is this important? And I think there's really three reasons to talk through. And the first one is really that the experts say so. So over the last 5 to 10 years, every publication out there has come out with some article cover of their magazine that says, data is the world's most valuable resource. It's more valuable than oil. And this is hyperbole, but there is some truth to it in that data is able to be, it is a product now. It enables businesses to do so much more effective targeting, and it helps them deliver better products and make better decisions. So companies that can make use of data are able to outpace their competitors. So we all know that data is important. And I think in marketing, we've actually been a bit ahead of this curve. And I think there's two statistics which show that there's still thirst for marketing to better take an advantage of data. And the first one is that 87% of marketers say that data is their organization's most underutilized asset. So I think that just shows that the average marketer out there still feels like there's value that's being left on the table because they don't have access to data. And so I think the goal for us, whether you're in IT or in marketing, is to help build the business case around that, about what data do you need, and what's the business value that you can go derive from it if we can unlock it. And the second is that only 20% of marketing spend out there is actually data driven. And if that's true, then there's a tremendous amount of optimization that's still left to be done. So think of how much more effective you can make your marketing budgets if we were able to bring that 20% up to 80%. So if the first reason is that the experts say so, I think the second reason is financial. And this is a chart that shows the percentage of an organization's total expenditure that is the marketing budget. So marketing is a massive line item in every company. Marketing is also a key piece of driving revenue for the company. So for every dollar that we spend in marketing, it's what helps produce revenue. So if we can make this more efficient or more effective, then we're able to either produce more revenue for the company spending the same amount, or we're able to save a tremendous amount because we'd be able to save some of that marketing budget. So imagine what a 2 or 5% efficiency could do to some of these massive budget line items here. So if the first reason is this is important and experts say so, the second is financial. The third is really strategic. And if you think about it, no matter what industry you're in, there's a certain truth about how marketing helps determine what companies are successful and which ones aren't. And a couple of examples to illustrate this point. If you think back to the 1960s and 70s, this Mad Men era, the primary way of marketing in that era was TV and one-size-fits-all print advertising. And these were mass channels where it was everybody got the same information and everybody got the same advertising sent out to them. And because of that scale, the people that could afford to pay for them were the large companies, so large CPG companies that created brands that became household names because they were in everybody's living rooms because they were the ones that could afford those expensive TV spots. But once they did that, then they had the awareness that came from being in every living room in America, and that reinforced their success in the market, which gave them success and cash from customers, which they could then reinvest in further advertising. And so there was this self-reinforcing cycle that came to be, and that created a lot of large-scale CPG companies and reinforced this consolidation in the kind of mass market companies of that era. So it was the marketing model that was available at that time that helped determine which companies were going to be successful. The same thing was true in the 2000s and 2010s. It was for a different reason though. In this era, we started to come up with many new ways of reaching customers in a very low cost way. So this was really the heyday of CRM marketing, where you could acquire a customer and the name of the game began to be, how can we upsell this customer and get them to be a repeat purchaser? And so we were using data and we were using those cheap channels like email to reach customers and to get them to come back and to derive loyalty. So lots of companies started to build out loyalty programs. Pretty much every retailer that you purchase from began to ask you to create an account or to join their loyalty program. You started to download the apps and have other reasons for those companies to reach out to you. And the winners were the ones that could expand their product portfolio to have more breadth to cross-sell you into, and the ones that were able to generate interest in their loyalty programs. And no one did a better example of this than Amazon with Amazon Prime. In the current day that we're in right now, it's actually about one-to-one experiences and using data to deliver a differentiated experience to every customer. And a good example of this is SoFi. So SoFi came around on the market, almost 10 years ago. And their product said, we think that we can take data and use it to price student loan risk differently than the banks are doing today. And that helped them generate a new product and take market share from people that weren't taking advantage of that data. And I think that the difference here, that there is all this data that's available, is generating winners in two areas. One is the data-driven disruptors like SoFi. And another example is someone like Netflix. Netflix was arguably a big company 10 years ago. It's a massive company now. And so much of their success over the last 10 years has been what they can do with data to change their product portfolio and their customer experience. They're certainly one of the leaders in this regard. The other group that has excelled in this era are people who are creating niche brands. So because you now have Facebook and Instagram as a way of advertising to customers, it's almost the opposite of that Mad Men era where it was one size fits all. Now you can have very targeted advertising that goes out to a specific audience, and you can cost effectively acquire those consumers directly. And so we've seen a rise in direct-to-consumer brands and products that are able to reach out very specifically to people that might be their buyers, where that wasn't possible before. So the question for you all is, as you think about your company's business model, how are you taking advantage of the era that we're in right now? Are you being one of those data-driven disruptors, and how could you better use data to do that? Or are you carving out niche audiences that you weren't able to address maybe 5 or 10 years ago to drive up or to drive down your cost of acquisition? So if there are 3 reasons why this is important, the experts are saying, so for financial reasons, it's important. For strategic reasons, it's important. Now, what would a good data strategy for marketing look like? And maybe we'll answer this question by answering the opposite question first, which is, what's a bad data strategy? So I have a couple to share from my past experience and from ones that I hope that you've probably seen in your organizations as well. The first one is, we don't have a strategy. So if there's not a single centralized place or team that's responsible for distributing analytics across the company, you might find that it's just being solved in little pockets, and you have a few experts here and there, but there really isn't good use of data around your company. Maybe you just don't have a strategy. The second, maybe the most common one, is that you have a few great analysts, and these people end up being heroes for the lucky ones that can get use of their time. And the game becomes getting to the top of their queue to make sure that it's your work that gets the support from the analysts. But the analytics really are distributed across the organization. It's really just a couple of heroes that can help get you data to drive your decisions, and that really doesn't scale very well. The third is people who have come around in the last couple of years and realized that advanced analytics and data science is the future, which is great. But if it's done at the expense of operational reporting and ad hoc analysis, maybe you've jumped a few steps ahead. And so you need to make sure that the analytics capabilities that you're investing in are kind of rightly sized to the needs of your company. And of course, you've got to solve those foundational problems of operational reporting and ad hoc analytics first. And the last one is analysis silos. And so sometimes you have pockets of experts on different teams, but maybe they're reporting out on the same metrics in different ways. Maybe you don't have governed data sets and agreed upon metrics across the organization. And so you're comparing apples and oranges across teams. And you need a central way of doing that. So those analysis silos really don't work well either. So those are 4 ways in which you might be having a bad strategy. What's a good strategy look like? And how do we see people build up that strategy? And when you think about it, of course, there's this ideal state that you have in your mind where you want data to drive every marketing decision. You want quick access to data to make sure that you understand which campaigns are working and which ones aren't, and to inform your marketing mix decisions. You want to use data to better segment your customers and drive a better targeted customer experience. And you'd like to have a data science team that can help you by building propensity models or predictive lifetime value models to help improve the customer experience and make your campaigns more effective. But given the current state that you're in, where it feels that they're so far away and you're stuck in the current environment with all the constraints that you have. It can be tough to chart a course from A to B, because you're really struggling with foundational things. Like, we don't have a clear picture of our customer. We don't have an understanding of how our campaigns are performing across channels. We're just looking at them on a channel by channel basis. Or we don't use data to activate it out into campaigns, actually. We have decent analysis, but we're not really changing the customer experience based on it. So these are some challenges that we're stuck with. What we've seen customers do in our customer base is start to approach marketing analytics as a maturity curve. And at the foundation, you need to establish a great customer 360, where all of this data is centralized in a single place and you have that single customer profile. From there, you can invest in better understanding of what's working and what's not. And that ROI reporting can inform future investments that you make. Then you can optimize your campaigns and take data from that customer 360 and use it to power segmentation and email and ad campaigns, and to personalize the customer experience on a one-to-one basis. And finally, you can deploy analytics products, data products, one-to-one data products that help determine, what's the lifetime value of this customer, what's the propensity to buy for this customer. And the ability to get all the way up that maturity curve rests on having a solid foundation. So if the foundation is getting that customer 360, how do I provide that to my team? So the last section here is we're gonna talk about what are some tips on building this customer 360 and how does Snowflake help? So there's 3 steps to talk through on how to build this customer 360. The first is to build a list of data sources that are key to understanding your customer. The second is to find a place to put all of that data, and Snowflake is a great way to solve that problem. And the third is to find a way to make it accessible across your company, and we'll talk about some tips and tricks for that. First, I'm building a list of data sources. Maybe a look at the problem first. So over the last 10 years, there have been so many applications that have come up that have become part of our customer experience. So at Snowflake, we have a couple dozen applications that we use in our marketing stack. There are many customers that are using well over 100. Each one of those has become a silo of customer data that you need to unlock in order to have a true understanding of what your customers are responding to. So the challenge is, how do you connect up to those tools to bring that data into one place so that you can see it all together? Because if that data is separate, you can't really understand how the advertising that you're doing is powering those orders, or how those different advertising and marketing channels are interacting with each other's, and which one is actually producing value for the company. So what you need is a single customer profile in one place where all of this data is linked back to that one customer, so you can see every interaction with your brand and understand which ones are driving value. So to get all this data into one place, the options are to build a solution or to buy a solution. And we think that there's room for each. So to build those connections to those tools, the question is, who's going to do this? Who is it on the IT team that's going to be responsible for this project? Who's going to own the quality assurance for this? What's the SLA going to be on breakages? This is a good path to go down if you're connecting up to homegrown sources. So if there's a production database that you need a copy of in order for analysis, of course, you're going to have to build that connection yourself. The other side of the equation is to buy an ETL solution. And we would definitely recommend this for marketers who are trying to connect up to dozens of sources to bring them in to get that customer 360. Because a lot of those connections to Facebook and to other tools have already been built. There's no reason for your team to invest in proprietary connection when it can be done in an out-of-the-box way. So investigate a good ETL solution and help bring all those sources into a single place. And that's the second step. So if you're going to put this into a single place, what should you be looking for in that solution? And we would say it needs 3 things. The first is you have to be able to store all of your marketing data in a single queryable location. So you need to be able to store that semi-structured data and the structured data under a single place, in one place. And Snowflake, of course, has that capability. You can store all that clickstream data from your website and all that structured CRM data from Salesforce inside of the same location. The second is you need to be able to support many workloads on a single copy of data. So you need to have business intelligence workloads, data science, personalization that you want to do all on a single copy of data. So there's no need to move it around the different environments where it might get delayed or out of sync with the other workloads that you're performing. And the final piece is supporting scale and performance. So you may have hundreds or thousands of people in your company that need access to analytics. You're going to need a platform that can handle the concurrency that happens when everybody comes in on Monday morning and needs access to data to understand how campaigns were performing and what their team should go and do next. So you should insist on a system that has that type of workload isolation so that those teams can be well supported. And of course, there's a role for Snowflake to play there. So Snowflake is a cloud data platform. We see customers come to us who are typically struggling with the complexity and the cost of their previous solutions and are finding that they're spending more time on maintenance than they are on the actual data that's going to drive insights for their team. So the key thing about Snowflake to call out is that we have a unique architecture, and that architecture has 3 layers. And the innermost layer is centralized storage. Then underneath the hood is cloud storage. And so for you, that means that you can get effectively unlimited scale for all the marketing data that you need to bring into a single location. And you can buy Snowflake on top of GCP or AWS or Azure. On the next layer out is the multi-cluster compute layer. And what this means for you is that for every one of those teams that's going to come in on Monday morning, you can get them separate resources that can be spun up and spun down as they need them. So when people are coming in during heavy load times, you can have warehouses that can spin up and give them lightning fast performance. And as soon as their queries or their workloads are done, they can spin down. And since you're paying just per second, you're only paying for what you use, and you're able to flex those resources accordingly. And the last layer, the cloud services layer, is that Snowflake is deployed as a service. So there's no vacuuming or indexing or partitioning that you need to do. All of this is done automatically as a service. And that's one of the advantages that you get from Snowflake, so that you don't have to spend time maintaining infrastructure. You can focus on higher value tasks and supporting those business users on your team. So after you have all of this data, you brought it into a single location, then you're going to want to make it accessible to business users. And many people talk about self-serve analytics, but don't have a great definition of what it means. A lot of customers think that this should apply to an 80-20 rule, where 80% of the questions that a business user is going to ask on a day-to-day basis can be answered themselves through operational reports or ad hoc querying. And then the 20% can be handled by an analyst who can write some more complex SQL or answer it in a more sophisticated way. So as long as you're providing people with the tools that they need to support 80% of those questions, then you're in good shape and you've supported self-serve analytics. And we've got a couple tips on what data sources we think are essential for marketing to come. So then to do that, define your requirements. What are the operational reports that you need? What's the ad hoc analysis that needs to be performed by different teams? And how are teams going to share queries and analysis across each other when they're answering similar questions? And consider partners like Tableau or Salesforce Einstein Analytics, where you can get those business users access to that analytics and deliver a complete solution on top of Snowflake. From a team's perspective, the key here is this insights and analytics team that's going to support those self-service analytics tools and those operational reports, and that's going to handle the 20% of queries that come in as requests from the other members of the team. Key roles to staff up are a marketing analyst and data scientist, a web analyst who might support a couple of channels, or a digital media analyst here, and then having skills on data cleansing, data mining, and advanced languages as you need to do some of that data science and centralize that on a single team. So if you're going to support self-service dashboards and self-service data sources for ad hoc analysis, there's 4 data sources that most marketers would consider essential to make available in an ad hoc way. The first is the customer profile and segmentation data. So having a clean, governed view of the customer and customer attributes is important. Second is campaign data. Understanding what campaigns worked and which ones didn't and which segments responded to them is critical to know what to do next. Initiative performance. So broad marketing campaigns, often involving partners, got to get that data into a single location. And finally, digital media. So understanding across channel where customers are coming from, what's the cost of the acquisition, how are they responding to different campaigns. Having that in one place, of course, is critical too. So we've talked about what a good data strategy looks like. We've talked about how it relies on a customer 360. You may have some ideas of things that you want to go build based upon this. Now the question is, how do you build some urgency? And a couple quick tips here. The first is to come back to those very first slides that we talked about, that ultimately this is a financial issue. That marketing is a revenue center, and you need to think about the IT initiative that support marketing as a revenue center. So as much as you can tie your initiative back to revenue or the ability to increase the gross margin and decrease the cost of goods sold or use SG&A resources more efficiently, the better you're going to be at getting your initiative staffed and prioritized. One quick exercise to do is to take that maturity curve and socialize it around your organization and do a quick stoplight assessment of how you're performing against each step. Where are the biggest gaps for your team and where do you need investments? Getting alignment at this level across marketing IT can help people understand where we should be making investments on a quarterly basis. And then from a tactical point of view, develop a quarterly planning process across marketing IT where you're identifying gaps, agreeing upon what the solutions to those gaps might look like, what the business impact would be to fixing it, and the value and the cost across marketing and IT in order to prioritize how marketing is going to be supported. Creating this dialogue across this team helps make sure that the important things get prioritized and that you understand how to use those scarce resources from IT. So to recap, we talked about three things. The first was, why does data matter to a marketing organization? And we talked about why from a financial perspective, this is critical, from a strategic perspective, this is critical, and it's become pretty well understood that data is critical to marketing. We talked about what a great data strategy is for marketing and what a couple of not great data strategies look like. And then we talked about how to build a great customer 360 and how Snowflake can play a role in that. So hopefully you've learned a couple of tactics that you can take back to your marketing or IT team. And hopefully you've learned how Snowflake can play a role in that marketing strategy for you as well. So thanks very much for your time. That is all.